Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Accessibility News, where we visit about physical and digital accessibility and obstacles. We may have a guest coming on here a little bit later with everything going on with reopening, with everything going on with getting prepared for a little holiday next weekend. Everyone's kind of scrambling, but we wanted to at least make sure we came on and shared as much information with you as we could. Tracey, how are you this morning?
I am doing fantastic. Love Fridays and always love Fridays and talk about my favorite subject of accessibility. Try to talk about all the good stuff that goes with that. Tell you a little bit about me for those who don't know. I'm with Certified Access Services, and we provide accessibility inspections, consultation, as well as we provide seminars and things like that for educating the business segment of accessibility and what they can do to bring the property into compliance for accessibility, as well as help them avoid those pesky lawsuits, ADA lawsuits that are out there. How about you, Glenn?
Well, thanks, Tracey. My name's Glen Ingram, and I own a couple of companies in the digital accessibility space where we try and help companies understand the importance not only to protect themselves from potential litigation of making their website accessible to everyone, but by increasing their exposure to the 20 to 24%, depending on which statistics you're looking at, of people that have at least one form of a long-term disability so that they can actually expose themselves to everyone and be available to convert them into clients. So just trying to help the internet work for everyone.
Yeah, and it has been a lively week for website accessibility. I am certainly getting those calls, and I found it a little interesting because it definitely follows the patterns of the accessibility lawsuits that happen in our realm of architectural. And what I didn't realize is they also get what looks like a very scam-like letter. It doesn't look real. And I get a good friend of mine calling saying, I don't think this is real. And do I just throw this away? And I was like, no, don't throw that away. This is probably your best time at this point to try to get out of it before they file a case, because then they're just going to want more money. And I had to, shuffle them off to you because, we talked about before, I know enough to just get you in trouble when it comes to technology. So away they went. And I'm just wondering, is that a particular common pattern that they get those letters that don't look real for websites as well?
I don't remember exactly. It's either the state of California or the Ninth Circuit, the federal court. In one of them, before you file, you must give a 30-day written notice, just kind of like those things that you would see in your physical business when they leave laying around on a table or whatever. So there has to be some form of notifications in one of the courts, not the other one. And what we see is where right now for your small mom and pop, the people that actually file the documents, so they've actually paid filing fees, the attorney has actually spent some time on this, where those ones are going away right now for a smaller business around the $10,000 to $12,000 range. You have some attorneys that are using this letter that's basically a form letter. I don't know if they even fill it out, and they may have a paralegal or a clerk or someone filling them out, but they're sending them out on a much larger scale. And those ones are settled for, a few $1,000s versus 10 to 12 because they're doing it before they've spent any time on it and any money filing with court costs. So unfortunately, sometimes that's the better scenario for a business owner, that they can maybe correct what's going on, what problems they have, and do so with less of a penalty, if you will, than from the ones that just received the lawsuit in the mail.
Right. And we tell them on our side of it that, listen, if you received that letter, you want to scramble to get your cast inspection and cure that right away, because you haven't been served. So if you do that, then you have the ability to get out of it just by having that cast inspection and curing that. I mean, if they haven't filed, you can get those benefits right away. I'm wondering if in these cases, when it's for accessibility, we get a situation where it comes up and a particular serial litigant will take pictures of a restroom, but it's not even the restroom that they're filing on. Do you find that any of the lawsuits that they take like a snapshot of a particular area on a website like they do for architectural?
I would see them probably taking a snapshot of it, maybe running some digital accessibility tools so that they have some reports or some identifying some obstacles, some errors, if you will, just so they have in their back pocket. Does everyone go through and do this? No, because 98% of websites are guilty. So they don't have to do a whole lot just to prove that it was. There are some tools that some of us have where we can go back and see how a website was built and what it worked like before it was changed. So I think it depends on the attorney you work with. I've seen some attorneys that swear that they can make these go away before that lawsuit is filed. Now, those attorneys also are going to charge you a little bit more money. So I think when it's all said and done, for these ones that you're getting a letter from, you're still going to spend a few $1,000s. But again, a few is better than 12 or 20 or 30. So it's kind of like the quicker you react with any of these, I agree 100%. It's the best result, because you don't want someone else to find out that this happened to you, and then all of a sudden you have another litigant with another attorney filing another suit against you and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we find often that fast and furious is the best way out, and is typically the cheapest. Some of them at this point, we're noticing when they file those letters, there's different types of serial litigants that file these cases. Some of them are people who they're doing it in mass numbers. So they're typically going to settle for the least amount because they're just throwing the net out there and whatever they can catch in. So you can see some of them doing for $1,000, $1,500. That's only a couple of them. The others, they like particular types. So I call it flavor of the day. So they might be hitting all sandwich shops or things like that. And they know that most of them are going to be some sort of cookie cutter scenario. Mm-hmm. So they are going for the 10,000. Then there are the other ones that really know what they're doing, usually the most common large firms, and they're going for the 20 now. And mm-hmm. So they don't need as many, but they know they're going to get the 20. Is it the same in the websites where they're looking for particular types of businesses to target more than others? Or is there a pattern that you've been able to see in what they're going after?
They all have different business models, I call them. I see some that'll have a group of 5 or 6 serial plaintiffs where they're hitting, I would say per plaintiff, 5 to 6 to 10 small businesses a week and 1 to 2 big ones. That way they keep the cash flow running from the settlements of the smaller ones, and then those big ones they're going after as whales. We see also the person that represents Teresa also represents the lady Coda. Where with Teresa, they're going after hotels. With Coda, all they're going after are e-commerce. They're still doing 10, 15, 20 a week, but they're going after the ones that are going to settle for 20 to 40 versus the 10 to 15. So they all kind of have their own little modus of operandi, if you will, how they operate their business and stuff like that. And they all have different business models. And the short answer is they're all making money off it, unfortunately. It just depends on what has worked for them in the past. But if you go to our blog on websearchpros.com, you'll see the same plaintiffs going after wineries or going after breweries or going after auto repair places. So they seem to find a niche and stick with that niche until it's gone, and then they go to the next niche.
Absolutely. So many times I say that if you get those letters, to please reach out to us, because I watch the patterns enough, and I want anybody who's listening to our show to know that you can call us if you get one of those letters, and we can pretty much tell you how you're going to land. Mm-hmm. Fix it or not. And then the other trick is, if you give them a lot of resistance, you can bet right away the other litigants are going to come down on you, because you can have multiple cases, and then it becomes a pay me now or pay me later. So getting the websites done correctly for you is really important, and for us, getting all of the visual things identified. One of the things that came up this week is, I have GoDaddy and I have my website through Wix, or I have it on some of these bigger brand things, and I built it out of their template. So why are those templates not compliant and you can just go in and do it. And so they were very confused, like, why would they try to sell you these templates that don't work? So is
It's
that a common thing that you hear? I mean, I,
what
as a small business owner, before I met you, thought the same thing.
100%. One thing to keep in mind is we have become complacent in our digital age, where we have these stupid things, and we always want the new app, the new thing like this, that no one reads terms and conditions anymore. Because if you read them, you would never use these services. You would never download most of these apps. So what everyone has to understand, unfortunately, right now, there is not a theme, there is not a builder, there is not a platform that will hold you accountable as you're going and making these changes on your own. It's your responsibility. You've assumed those responsibilities. So there is no way for the average person to have a website that is accessible. It's just not. I mean, little things to where you put a picture up there. If you don't know how to put the proper type of description for a screen reader to say that this is Tracey sitting in front of a gazebo with lighting and a fence, little things like that to describe it, it's never going to be like that. When you put a link to Facebook, they're not built properly to tell that screen reader this is a link to Tracey's Facebook page. It just says Facebook, so it's not descriptive enough. So we're working on putting together a platform like that. We've been working on it for a few months. It's not an easy undertaking, but it's just all of these platforms that are easy for people to use, that you see these commercials, build your website and be on the beach in a couple hours and it's going to be making you money. That's bubbles. It doesn't work like that. And you're going to leave yourself open to accessibility issues.
Absolutely. So another thing I wanted to ask today, because it does come up, and it's in regards to legislation. And is there anything that you see coming down the pipeline that's going to assist in creating a program like a CAST program that would offer some sort of certification or some sort of something that you would be able to put on a website? Do you see anything in the future? I know that technology is such a monster in itself, and that it's constantly changing. So it's going to be far harder to do that and track that than it is in the architectural world. Do you see anything coming down the pipeline to help businesses in the world of websites and accessibility?
No. Every piece of legislation, whether it be in the state of California or federally, has been shot down. You're not going to change this and make the lawsuits go away. And it's difficult, I think, for people in general, much less politicians, to be able to see something that they can't touch and feel. It's easy for me to see a door is 36 inches wide, that a bathroom is this big. I can see on a map and I can quantify or picture sizes and dimensions and stuff like that. To be able to understand coding and stuff like this, the average people can't do that. So it's going to be difficult to get someone to, basically the way you get something to become a law in the state of California is you or I create the law. We give it to a politician, we write the law out, and they act like they know what they're talking about to do what we present. It's going to be hard to get someone to take the time to do that and to make it work. It shouldn't be that, it's not that difficult. It wouldn't be that difficult to make the parameters, to do this, and to create the certification. And I think it should be something that we should have more of, because so few of us have certifications in this industry. It would be a great thing to have. The reality of it is I don't see a lot of people in my industry taking it seriously enough yet to dedicate the time to learn how to do it right, to get certified. So I don't know that the benefit would come about that quickly from it. I don't know that you'd have a lot of people getting certified in it. At some point, people are going to have to be more cognizant of this, more dedicated to it. It's just our industry is, I think, the epitome of, like most industries, most people strive to their limitations, and they're not going to take the time to learn and to try and do this stuff because they just don't know or care or understand it. And truth be told, most people in digital marketing don't know how to code. So you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I've got two monsters going on there, and I agree, it's really hard. Well, I know that in our world, it's constantly evolving, and the accessible code cycle changes every 2 years, but then we also get supplementals. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't realize that these supplementals are going to go into effect July 1. That's in a hot second. So
what's coming up July 1, Tracey?
well, there's 57, and we're not going to go over all 57. So I'm primarily going to focus on commercial and or parking things, because the housing stuff that they're bringing in, I've got to do a little more research because it made my eyes want to cross. And it's a little more difficult than. So the majority of the changes, and which shouldn't be surprising to anybody, is all about electric vehicle charging stations.
Really?
So well, there's that big push to make it, green, that we're all supposed to go electric, which I'm not sure that I see that as 100%, but you definitely are seeing a lot more electric cars on the road, and now these charging stations. So I don't know if you've gone to any of the rest stops along the road in California right now. They're full of electric charging stations.
That makes sense, because we always have plenty of electricity in the summer in California, don't you?
I don't know. They keep doing rolling blackouts and they keep threatening us. So I'm a little confused. But you travel quite a bit back and forth between California and Vegas. And I have heard, haven't seen it myself, that when you get to Barstow, there is a huge line, and it's all electric charging, because most of them can't make it all the way from San Diego to Vegas. And so they all stop in Barstow, and you can wait, 1 to 5 hours to be able to charge your vehicle to go the rest of the way. Well, by then I'm irritated because, I don't know if you've ever been to Barstow, but not a whole bunch there, and it's hot.
Yeah, there are cars showing there at State Line.
Is that where, are you seeing it? I mean, someone told me they had to wait 5 hours. No.
Well, and from my understanding, even with these quick charging ones, and I may be completely wrong, it takes like an hour to an hour and a half to charge it at a quick charging station. So, I mean, yeah, you're taking your 4.5 to 6 hour trip from San Diego to Las Vegas, and now it's a 7-8 hour trip, because now you're doing that. I think some of these cars are amazing, but I think we may be getting that cart just a little bit ahead of the horse.
Yeah, agree. And so whenever there's something new, we have to consider accessibility. So there may be some electric vehicle charging stations that are just for the disabled. And if you've got an empty space that's right next to you and you've been waiting 5 hours, I can guarantee that people are going to break that rule. So let's talk about some of the electrical vehicle charging station things that are going to change. Some of them are actually really good because it was so vague. Nobody really knew how to apply accessibility and electric vehicle charging stations. So the path of travel of elements to the installation of an electric vehicle and charging station. So where the recharge is stored, you can have them in lots of different places on properties. But if the primary function of that area is for electric vehicle charging station, then that's when the accessibility laws come in. So they changed some language from primary function is a major activity for which the facility is intended. So that language originally was very vague. So people thought every single area in which they installed an electric vehicle charging station had to be accessible. So they've changed that out. If a property has multiple areas, this would include now just the primary, meaning the most access. Parking spaces. This one I added in because it does refer to public housing, that the EV changing charger stations are permitted to be installed at an accessible parking space assigned to the resident. So think about the cost of this. You're moving into a public housing project and you have an electric accessible vehicle. They have to put in a charging station for you now. How about that? Oops, Elisha, I can't hear you.
I'm assuming that if it's accessible, that means you have to have probably wider parking stall than a normal one would be. So I know parking seems to always be at a premium at any apartment complex or any condo complex I've been in California or Nevada. So is that going to dictate that they have larger stalls and fewer spots?
Yes and no. So one, it'll depend on the disability of that particular person. And there are some disabled vans where you can have rear access. So for that particular person, that wouldn't require it. I mean, and not every disabled person is in a wheelchair where they would have to have the side access. So for residential and it's their particular parking space, there's going to be some rules about that. So more and more we're finding that residential spaces will need that. So kind of identified these together. So the other one is the access aisle you were referring to. Now we're going back to commercial. So that would be under the 11B. 2 parking spaces or 1 parking space and 1 EVCS, the electric vehicle charging station, are permitted to share a common access aisle. Now that's good because now they're going to make it so that on the electric vehicle, it can be that you're exiting out of that vehicle left or right. Typically, it's only on the passenger side. But if you have an electric vehicle charging station and you've made it accessible and then you put in an access aisle, the next space can now share that access aisle. Okay. So that's going to free it up so that you're not taking up so many spaces. Because if you took that into consideration, you might actually end up using what would equate to 4 parking spaces. So that is an interesting one that people are talking about. The other is the location, where 4 or fewer electric vehicle charging stations are provided with a facility. The access aisle for the non-angled accessible spaces may be located on either the driver or the passenger. And that's what we were talking about. So they actually added a code for that. Okay. So that will happen. And those are really important. And the other is the word parking space length. So where they were putting in these electric vehicle charging stations, they were putting in and saying whatever the parking space length was at the time, you could leave it. And now they had to make it specific because people took advantage of that, knowing that the parking space really needs to be 18 feet. So, as people push the rules, they're going to tighten things up. Another big one that kind of went into place is, there's all these refilling stations. So, we've had the trend where everybody had a water bottle, and now there's the trend of everybody brings in their own Yeti. I guess that's what they're calling them, and they want to fill them up. So if you're going to provide a station for water bottle, you need to make sure that it's low enough and the reach ranges. Now, if you have a water fountain and a water bottle filling station, just lowering that water bottle filling station does not help you. You're going to still have to, if you have a water fountain, you must have the 2 levels. Okay. So just having that water bottle station, so people were trying to say, okay, my water fountain was high enough, but I'm just going to put in a lower bottle, but they can't really put their head under there and drink from that filling station. Although it might be entertaining, people always do funny things. The other is that the devices, again, must be done with a fist. There's a couple of products out there that people need to be aware of that you have to push and turn and do all these different things. If you can't do it with your fist, people don't put it into your building. I appreciate when people put in these water bottle filling stations, but again, all of the features need to be able to be done with your fist, and we have to be able to reach it. Baby changing. Okay, this one I thought was funny because they actually had a claim and a lawsuit that a baby changing table was a place where you change babies. Yeah, like you're going to put your baby down there and get another one.
I didn't know that was an option. They have a return policy?
I didn't know that people would actually take baby changing tables as that's where you change babies. Now, listen, there's a day in every parent's life where you're like, oh, I'm going to change you in for a new one. I guess these people thought that's where it happened. So they changed the language to baby diaper changing stations so that it's more clear. Now, I just want to say, do you know what it costs to put through all of this information and the work that it takes because somebody needed it clarified that it's not to change your baby for another one, it's where you change diapers?
Well, wasn't it going to be simple enough to say it didn't have the X in front of change to exchange, baby?
Well, oh my.
People are special, aren't they?
I say often, Glenn, that, I'm from crazy California. I was born and raised here, so I can definitely say that. And if you've been here 20 years, we'll let you say that too. Really? Did we really need to spend, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this stuff through. And, people have to pay attention to it and read it. When you look at the time that goes into it, we really need to have that identified. And so you have to change the signs now to read baby diaper changing station.
Some stories you just can't make up.
You can't make that up. And so when people look at these things and they're like, oh, okay, we have to change that sign, they don't realize what we've just paid to make that happen.
Yes.
Detectable warning, or as I call them, ankle breakers. You're wearing heels and you get those yellow bumpy things. I'm sure I'm going to break my ankles on those one day. So I try to avoid them when I'm in heels. Or as the lady told us that was blind and she was saying that she needed them, which I completely, she's like, you just need to change your shoes. Those aren't good for you. No, they're cute. So detectable warnings. This section has been revised in its entirety, and I'm happy about it because it was so confusing. You would go to some properties, and by the way, those things are really expensive to install for properties. And they would have them everywhere because they just thought, well, I don't want to get sued, so I'm just going to put them everywhere. But you have to remember that they're being put in a space where a blind person would walk out into crossing traffic. We don't want them getting hit. And so those, if you just put them everywhere, I saw them put in the middle of a parking lot. Well, they come upon one of those, they're kind of stuck. Either way they go, they're going to get hit.
Yeah.
Don't put those there. So the language has been changed. And so instead of it saying hazardous vehicle area, it has been removed and replaced with blended transitions. Detectable warnings shall be provided at blended transitions. So when you go to, you're on a sidewalk and you at the corner and you get those warnings, that's important, but that doesn't mean that you needed it on the entire sidewalk. Make sense? It's kind of in areas where it's particularly going to land. So that one wasn't bad. And the other one that goes with that is the making it a little more clear for people because it says that it must be contrasting colors. Well, in California, that works for others. So you just have to have a contrasting color. California, yellow, 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 yellow. Don't put in any other color. And then people will say to me, yeah, but the city put in a gray one. And yes, that doesn't mean that it's right. And it means that's what their contractor put through and didn't put enough detail, so the plan checker didn't catch it. Yellow. That's it. We're in California. You're in another state. By golly, you want to put red, white, and blue in, I guess it's okay there, but not in crazy California. Yellow. So important one, people, because for the visually disabled, all those other colors look like a hole. And so it's really important to have the correct color. The other is college housing now. Now it is really important that you have adaptable kitchens. So if you provide college housing, that kitchen needs to be adaptable. That means that probably the some of the cupboards could be removed, that the restrooms, you can pull out the cupboard underneath and get through. There's a lot of little things, but they're making it now that all college housing that has little kitchenettes and things like that must have adaptable features.
So is that all of them or a percentage of the apartments?
So the way that it says is in undergraduate student housing, kitchens with multi-bedroom housing units and on floors containing accessible sleeping rooms must have adaptable features, including turning spaces or circular T-shaped shall be provided. So I'm wondering, I imagine with existing ones, they'll have, if they make any alterations, then those would have to be brought up. Any new, of course, is going to have to, if they haven't finished their construction, will now have to do that. And that, remember, all these went into effect July 1. So if you're midway through construction, you may want to look at the supplemental for California and make sure that you include those, because those are some of the biggies. Like I said, I didn't touch a lot on housing. There's a lot to do with housing in there, but those are the biggies for commercial. So big shout out. We will be sending, of course, to all of our clients these updates, especially if they apply to their properties. It's part of the information that we provide is anytime there's an update and a code that may apply. In our case, most of these will apply if any of them make an alteration. And so we want to make sure that they have that. But if you are out there listening to us and you need to get an idea of where these are or where you can find them, you can always reach out to myself or Glen, and we'll be happy to provide those for you. There you go, Glen. Woo.
2021, who'd have thunk?
Like I said, some are good, some are crazy, and some needed some clarification. I think we're going to see more with the electric vehicle charging station as people push the envelope. They have to make some of those, adjustments so that you don't go into a parking lot and it's all accessible parking and electric vehicle parking station. If you got a regular car, well, I guess you need to park somewhere else, because that's kind of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of questions about that, but yeah, that is what's happening in the world of architectural and code changes and everything going on. Not all bad. Remember, we're not the bearer of bad news. The good news is businesses are opening. A lot of them are calling in and saying, I'm open now. What do I need to do? I want to set my budgets and increase my revenue by getting that out to the disabled, which always makes me very happy, as you know. I love that part.
I have a question with regards to that, because we were just downtown last weekend having dinner. Yeah. And it was a restaurant that had some outdoor dining around where you would normally go into their restaurant, and a tent in the street, or I think you call it a parklet or whatever.
Yep.
So the tent had a wooden ramp that technically would probably provide an obstacle when you come back out of it. So as long as there's enough tables in the immediate outdoor by the entrance to the building, does that suffice for everything, or do they have to have a good path of travel in and out of the tent as well?
So great question, and that's coming up a lot. So if you've got sidewalk seating, so 5% of that seating, because that's an experience. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to need to make sure if that ramp is, over 5%, you're going to need to have those handrails in. And you got to make sure that, it meets all the requirements for that. And then, yes, once you're up in that parklet area, then that's an experience. You need 5% of the seating there. And then if you have a tented area, now that's considered a covered area, that also needs to be 5% seating. So
each individual experience, you can't say I have more seating over here to accommodate for that, is what you're saying. Yes,
and a lot of people do that because they misunderstand. They think 5% of their overall seating. Mm-hmm. And I can understand why the code is written, a little different. But if you think of it as experiences, So if you've got, a view of and you won't even think that this is a pretty view, a view of the cars going by, you know what I mean? We're not talking about only pretty views, any view. That's an experience. If you're sitting at a bar, that's an experience. If you're sitting on a sidewalk, that's a different experience. If you're sitting inside, a cafe or a restaurant, that's a different. It's booth seating as opposed to table seating. And every different type of experience, it's 5% of that seating. And there's different ways that you can do that. But that is probably the number one item that restaurants get hit on, as well as, hotels, because they have all these different things like, business office areas where you can print your tickets when you're flying, and then there's seating areas to sit by the fireplace and some of these, so think of it in all of those areas, and you're going to need to provide space for someone in a wheelchair or with some sort of disability. So
Okay.
yeah, big one.
Always
right now.
interesting to know the fine details, because you can use common sense and sometimes that doesn't apply.
Exactly. And, I'll tell you, most of the people that are coming to visit your restaurant, if you just show some accommodation to get them to a table and give them a great experience, it's not like they're going to sue you. But let's try to make it a little bit easier for them, so that they don't have to ask. I mean, I don't like to ask. I don't, especially now because everyone's so short of staff. I don't want to have to ask for anything. So they don't want to bother anyone either. They just want to go there and have dinner and or have a meal and enjoy the facility and be able to, tell everybody what a great experience they had. That also being said, we should probably mention that jobs are so available right now. Glenn, I was working a golf tournament the other day and out on the course, and I'm just selling raffle tickets. And I got 3 amazing job offers. And I would tell them all, listen, I really work with a cranky lady and I should totally leave, but I'm not going to. And they were like, what are you talking about? You're not going to leave. And I was like, yeah, well, that's me. So no, I do enjoy my job so much, but they were offering some pretty incredible positions. One of them, I mean, it was like $100,000 base with commissions. That's a great job. Benefits and all of that. So people, if you are looking for a job or you're looking to change careers, boy, and I have always asked, so are you making it a point to reach out to the disabled? Because some of the hardest workers I've ever met. And so if you're having a hard time, this is a great time. If you have a disability, to get that job that you never thought you could get, because they are looking for loyal, dedicated people that are going to show up and do their job. A lot of them are adapting to let you work at home. Some of them include travel if you want to travel. But this is the time. Right now, if I hear of anybody because they don't have money because they don't have a job, my head might explode. You're going to see those little chickens where the feathers just fly everywhere. That might happen to me because every day people are like, if you know anybody, please. So again, if somebody's looking for a job, please reach out to us, because we have some contacts of people really looking for every type of industry you can think of right now. So Go get them. Go get them. Get that career you never thought you could get.
It's definitely going to be an interesting time. Definitely there's going to be some good movement within careers and opportunities that people may not have thought of before.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are training, it used to be you had to have experience, a college degree, all of this. There's such a shortage of people wanting to work that they're like, okay, we'll train you. It doesn't matter. We will train you. And we've got people that are willing to pay for degrees. I mean, how great is that? You start out with this and you continue to go to school. I know my stepdaughter is taking advantage of that right now, and they're paying for her college. Heck, I'm sure she has to make some sort of commitment to them to work with them after she gets her degree, and they've paid for all that. But heck, it's a great job, and she's working in that field now.
So if I hear you right, you're saying a short-term commitment might be better than a long-term commitment of what we call student loans?
Right. There you go. And listen, your credit will look amazing because they're making that payment.
Mhm.
And so it's a win-win. People get out there and go ask for that job you thought you could never have.
Yeah.
So see,
Awesome.
we have good news. We have
Exactly. Exactly.
good
Well, you know what? It looks like our guest must not have been able to make it. Those things happen sometimes, but I think at
It
least we were
does.
able to share a lot of great information with people that may have otherwise missed it. We're going to take next week off for the long holiday to enjoy ourselves, recharge our batteries, and then after the 4th, we're going to be back at this. We have some great guests coming up, so I'm really looking forward to accessibility news in the second half of the year.
I agree. And yeah, we've got a lot of people saying, hey, is there any chance I could get on and talk about this stuff and just give people our perspective? And absolutely. And so I'm looking forward to next year's. Please, listening, share with your friends. We'd love to get your insight. So please feel free to email us or talk to us. I know, Glenn, we put out some stuff on LinkedIn and other places like that where people can reach out. So people, have a safe and wonderful long holiday. And we look forward to visiting you all and getting you some good information about accessibility news soon.
Exactly, exactly. Like Tracey said, have a safe holiday, everyone. We'll see everyone back the first Friday after the 4th. Talk soon.